anecdotally, you talk about somebody saying that so-and-so is doing very well. What do you mean by that? Do you ever mean that this person is of poor means but has got glowing health and he's happy? Never. Never.
Exactly.
Think, just roll back to a conversation that you've had with somebody and you've said somebody is doing really well.
Yeah.
What it usually means is the person is materially doing well, has considerable amount of position in the community or the organization that he's working in. But then we know that is far from being well. And I love to talk more about my failures than my successes. And how I conceived of pluggage comes from a deep failure that I faced as a professional, which I understand. I was one of those who was supposed to have done really well professionally. I was 34 and I was head of HR of an American multinational, which was in the Fortune list of great places to work since Fortune started the list. I used to be the head of HR for SAS India. And Misha, there were days when it would be 6 o'clock and I would have realized that I've not had a sip of water and a morsel of food, and I was doing well. I got selected internationally to represent the country at various fora to talk about what we were doing well. But my own life, I have had hypertension since I was 28 years old. I've coped with it. I've been on medicines. I was a lot more overweight, stressed. I had a young growing up daughter at that time, 8 years old. I wanted to do a great job as a mother. And becoming any better on my well-being front meant more medicines. I was head of HR. My personal life was a mess when it came to well-being. And all of us in HR are responsible for the well-being of the people whom we serve. Now, could that be a bigger failure than that? And from that failure, emanated my understanding. And I was 36, I gave it up. I knew that this was not working out. So I moved into London. I went to Oxford University. I studied. I went back. I said, let me first fix myself, then we'll talk about fixing others. It's been a journey since then on. And today I could say, and as you mentioned, I do a huge number of things. I'm never stressed negatively. I have a stress that this has to be completed. You would never find me sulking. I'm never short of energy. I almost find myself indefatigable. Am I doing anything different? Am I eating special food? No, I just have learned how to live well. Unfortunately, the narrative about well-being is coming from those people who help us save our lives, which is the medical community. Their job is to save our lives. Their job is not to help us live well. Helping us live well, that teaching had to be done somewhere else, which all of us missed. So now a doctor today has no idea about nutrition. There is no subject of nutrition spoken, taught in medical school. They do not have, they are not trained on the connect between mind and body and how much it contributes to well-being. You told me about yoga psychology. Every time I greet somebody, I say namaste. Does it mean that I am proud about my cultural values? Yes, I am. But do you know what this does? Is that all the entire energy body terminates here. Every time I do this, I'm balancing it inside me. So our culture has small things embedded in our day-to-day life, which can actually make us well. Do we understand that we don't? So the narrative about well-being is coming from a place where it shouldn't be. Add to it all commercial imperatives of our believing in certain things, right? Now, let me go back to the question that you asked. People are spending money on well-being. What is happening then? Now, if you tell me that you have enhanced the insurance cover, a health insurance cover for an individual and his family, you will call it a well-being initiative, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's typically called a well-being initiative. What have I told you? I've told you that you can go and hurt yourself, but if you hurt yourself, I'll pay for the doctor. Don't worry.
Sure.
So according to me, that's a compensation solution. It's not a well-being solution. So now you see when Gartner's picking up all the well-being initiatives, I have taken the one which is, I would, the most stark of it. So they're stacking those up and saying that they have taken all well-being initiatives, but nothing is happening. So number one, what are you actually measuring? So that's one. The second is that well-being doesn't have its own foot to stand on. For example, there are organizations which are no smoking. There are organizations which have access to a 24/7 counseling line. Luggage also offers a counseling line, and I can tell you, if it is not supported well, nobody would call. So you've given access to employees to do something, they are not participating. You're spending, it's not getting utilized. Obviously, it will not show the results. So one is that what am I measuring is not right. And the second, that which I am doing is not really being taken advantage of by employees within the organization. So therefore, all these people who are together, you, I, you, all of us who are listening in right now, all our combined philosophy of well-being is actually driving what well-being is. So and one of the reasons that I didn't want to do a knowledge sharing over here, and more than that, I would like to do a perspective sharing, is that all of us in HR over here need to know and need to understand, ask ourselves, what is well-being? And there are these list of questions which have come from those who are attending. You will get your answers there if you know what exactly well-being is all about. And can you imagine the kind of power that HR has to actually influence this? I think that we are an extremely fortunate and blessed set of people because we can move the world. And I'll tell you why. People come to work. We are the ones who enable livelihood for people. Can you imagine what an important role that is? We are actually enabling livelihood for people. This livelihood gives people a sense of confidence, purpose, achievement, huge things for personal well-being. This is an opportunity you're giving to people to create positive relationships within the organization that you're working for, extremely curative and beautiful for people to actually be well. You're giving them a platform for structuredly leading their lives. And there's a research, I think, and a couple of days back, I was reading that the World Economic Forum is saying that those people who have a structured life do not get dementia. Because and I'll speak to you about it later on, what is happening is that there's too much of cognitive overload. So when you say cognitive overload, what it means is that earlier in an hour, I had to deal with X number of information and things to do. Today, in that 1 hour, I have 50x because there's things coming on my WhatsApp, there are people calling me up, there is an email dropping in, I have my own imperatives, somebody's calling me up. So there's so much that I have to deal with in that 1 hour. I'm just stressed. Yeah. And when I'm stressed, that causes me a lot of bother. So when we are structuring work for people, if we structure it out so well that everybody has predictability in what they're doing, you've already taken care of their health and well-being. So I think HR is at a place which is very, very powerful. We need to claim that space. And to claim that space, we need to first build our perspective on what health and well-being is all about. After we have built that perspective, we need to live our lives well. If we live our lives well, I can assure you that when you go and speak to your president or to your CEO or to your managing director, your conversation will be informed by your own personal experience, intellect. I dare you, nobody will disagree with you. We've to get it right, actually.
I think that's very beautifully articulated, Doctor, actually. Because when you said that, you should really be proud of, what you're doing, you were providing a structured platform for people to really get a sense of purpose, to feel that, they are earning their livelihood, they're achieving something, and to get that predictability in their day. I think that is actually so powerfully put together in the way you just said it. That, truly, if you think about it, HR is exactly that. And the caveat here is that as HR, you should understand what well-being means. And if we'll go through the conversation further, and what you'll find is that I have put the questions that we received from the audience, I've put them into broad questions so that everybody can get their answers from the conversation that we're having right now. But I think when you said that, as HR, you're providing a platform for people to ensure that there is a sense of predictability in how their day is going to be, and they don't get overloaded by this, mass of information that is coming to them. I think that leads me to the next question that most people had on the link that they registered, which was that, post-COVID, the way we work has changed. The landscape is completely different. We have people who are working out of the office. We have people who are working from home. We have people who are working completely remotely, where we don't even, nowhere close to the office. And then there are people who've been regularly working on the field, people like salespeople or any other professions who need to be on the field. So, knowing that there are different kinds of people operating in different working conditions, how do you ensure well-being, as a statement for your organization?
Yes, it is a very practical and real question. Very, very practical. So I'll give you a few structures and a few perspectives, right? So then everybody will be able to kind of structure what they would want to do. One is well-being is multidimensional. It is not just about physically how I feel, what I'm eating, exercising. That's one is physical well-being. So after physical well-being, you have several other things which again interact with one another. So since people are at work, physical well-being, and then you have emotional well-being. We understand what physical well-being means is that how is your body responding to the requirements of your life? That's another thing that I have. What does lifestyle mean? Lifestyle, and that store has actually taken that consciousness has been taken over by the lifestyle store, and saying that I want a certain kind of a lifestyle. Have you told people? I've had young men and women telling me that, I want to move and I want to do new things, but, I want to maintain my lifestyle. Again, lifestyle does not mean which car you're driving, which house you live in, which neighborhood you live in.
It's not your standard of living.
No, it's not standard of living. Lifestyle means how are you responding to the needs of life?
Right.
So physical well-being is about that. Then you have emotional well-being, and a lot has been written about how both of them are interconnected. The third, since people are working, occupational well-being, your sense of well-being with your job. Are you feeling happy, good about it, utilized, respected, honored? All that becomes important. So especially for workplace well-being, occupational well-being is very important. The fourth is, and given now we have this new arrangement of working that is happening, which is work from home, hybrid, people out on the street, and forgetting one, the gig economy has coming in big deal. Now I have no sense of belonging. Where do I actually work?
Yeah.
Which started when the software industry came in and you were at the client workplaces. All of a sudden now this gig economy has taken it to some other level.
Absolutely.
So now in that case, social well-being is very important. Do I have a sense of belonging? Do I know that somebody has my back at work? So social well-being becomes very important. And the most important one for which people are actually coming to work is their financial well-being. There is this Ayush Shraddha's videos. I watch them very carefully because they're very real representations. When HR goes out and says that we are hiring and you are like a family, you aren't adopting people. You are actually giving livelihoods to people. So let us be real about it. We are not family over here. We are a set of people who've come together primarily for livelihood, some individual life purpose. So that social well-being is very, very important. And that social well-being definitely leads, the financial well-being is very important. And the sixth, but which is last but not the least, and which I love to talk about, is the spiritual well-being. My level of consciousness as a person Is my organization taking it up or bringing it down? To go back to the experience that I shared about you, about myself, when I was there thinking that I was doing a great job, I was getting recognized nationally, internationally for doing a great job, but for what I told you, for doing all the wrong things. So therefore, it's very important to have people have a belief in a larger life purpose beyond our everyday goings. So then that brings in a sort of an atmosphere and culture within the organization, which then I would, for the want of a better, breeds a sense of well-being amongst people. So when we are dealing with people, remember that's what at Plugage we look at 6 dimensions of well-being, and it's coming after a lot of research of having picked up and dropped and all. So physical, emotional, occupational, social, financial, spiritual, all aspects have to be taken care of. So if you've got somebody out there in the field, how do you take care of a social well-being? Question. You need to do something about it. If they're out there somewhere on the field, physical well-being, what is the kind of work that is getting loaded on that person? For example, look at the courier boys who are delivering couriers these days. Are their physical well-being being taken care of by the load that they're carrying on their back? Talk to an orthopedic, they will tell you that what you're doing is actually inhuman, subhuman with them. So take a look at that and saying, are we being fair to all these things? So these are the 6 dimensions of well-being, but some overarching things. Long back, I remember C.K. Prahlad gave this: N is equal to 1 and R is equal to G, 2 formulae for innovation. N is equal to 1 means every person is unique. And why I'm bringing that in over here, and it's something that all of us should learn from, is that leaders, it could be CEOs of organizations, it could be heads of HR, there is a certain method of well-being which is worked out for us, right? Like, for example, I'm telling you that I work on something called yoga psychology as an organization. Does that mean that is the only way? Can't be. Cannot be. So I think it's very important to understand every person reverberates with a different kind of a philosophy. There has to be enough space for everybody to practice whatever they would want to do. I have seen organizations where the CEO is a runner, he would make sure everybody runs. It could happen with us as heads of HR also, right? Running might work for you, for some other person, something else might work for you. So there has to be space. So N is equal to 1. But C.K. Prahlad also said R is equal to G, which means the entire globe has to become your resource. So that means you have to cater to the individual as an individual, but you have to put resources of all kinds, which actually make sense for that person. The third bit, health and well-being is a personal responsibility. Okay? So we have to, HR also has to be dispassionate about it. It is a individual responsibility, but our responsibility as an organization is to help the individual discharge of this responsibility as best as he can. That's very important. Our responsibility is to just enable him so that he can follow it as best as he can. Wherever we're looking at well-being, there are, on a continuum, there is one which is curative. Something has gone wrong, so you're helping him cure. Then you have preventive, and then you have promotive. So in an organization, different things might be needed for different things. So for curative, you have given insurance, you have given an EAP line to call up, that is curative. Then you have preventive. So let's not limit our preventive to just preventive health checks. It is very important for people to understand what are the different kind of things that they need to do to prevent from actually harming their well-being. So it's just not about physical well-being. For example, drawing boundaries in a world which has become more, boundaries have disappeared, they have fudged out. It's very important to make people aware what boundaries are all about. That is preventive healthcare. And then you go and actually do promotive healthcare. What is the means to actually be ebullient and very happy in life? वो कहाँ हो रहा है आज के दिन? Nobody looks at it only. So from curative, we have come a little to preventive. It's important that we go into promotive because even the World Health Organization says that the workplace has to be the primary site for health promotion. Because if in case you take a 24-hour day, 8 hours we are asleep, 16 hours we are awake, out of which 10 hours are either at the workplace or traveling to it or receiving calls. So you have 60 to 70% of your waking hours at the workplace. It's the perfect place to promote health. The
Yeah.
other thing that I would want to really ask you to look at it and see that if you promote health, productivity will go up. And when
Yeah.
productivity goes up, it makes a business case for it.
Right.
I can guide you to run pilot groups, small groups to see whether it works or not. But health, when promoted, leads to enhancement in productivity. So therefore, it makes a huge amount of business sense to work on the promotive and the preventive bit about the health, about well-being. Leave that curative bit as much aside as possible.
Hmm.
Because you see, I mean, I have been at the head of a function. A group insurance scheme is the biggest bleed in an organization because everybody is getting their planned surgeries done for that. So we should look at that as a component of compensation and not well-being. Not well-being. That's not what well-being is all about. Then, when we are driving health and well-being, we have to have a holistic perspective because I told you there are different dimensions to well-being, but at the same time, they have to be driven by experts.
Hmm.
Because, for example, just one talk on nutrition will not promote health and well-being.
Yeah. It's a continuous process.
It is a continuous process which can be done from an organization, corporate level, but it has to be driven with a lot of expertise in it because there are too many quacks in the space. Too many quacks. If you have a nutritionist who's coming from a sports background, will have different advice. A nutritionist coming from other background will have some other advice. Where will people make the sense out of it? So we leave people confused actually then.
True.
So
True.
6 dimensions and these truths which are there, which n is equal to 1, then preventive, promotive, and curative. Put all of this together and then design what you want to do as a program. I hope that answered the question.
Loads of questions, actually, not one. so some of the questions, and what I'm going to do is, because your response was actually a lot of answers put together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be saying out some of the questions that people had put across to us, and then we can just tie that up with what you just said. So one of the questions that had come up was, is there a framework that we can use to ensure that well-being is happening? So that thing that you talked about, the 6 dimensions of well-being and health, I think that kind of answers that question. That if you can ask that question and answer that honestly, that are these 6 dimensions being met at our workplace? Are they being driven by these truths? Are they being driven by this law of R? N is equal to 1 and R is equal to G, then I think you can kind of get yourself in that space and then work towards organizing it. Am I right in saying what I just said?
Yes, you are. But there's another part to it, Nisha. One is, what should it be like? So ye to baat ho gayi, what should it be like? 6 dimensions. How to do it? There are frameworks for that also. How to do it. Okay. So there will be different. So I'll give some sources where all of you who are attending, you could go and do your little bit of research. Is that the World Health Organization obviously sits on top. It's the apex body. The International Labour Organization is another apex body, which creates a lot of knowledge around this. The World Economic Forum is doing a lot of work around it. There are frameworks around that. And then you have individual consulting houses also who are producing. Okay. So it's a buffet laid out over there. You pick whatever works for you, is according to me. More importantly now is that how do I go about doing it? That's the problem that I see very young people say that ye to samajh aata hai. Then no, how do I go about doing it? It's very important. So I think that every organizational realities are different. I mean, because your business is different, the kind of people that you are is different, the challenges that you're facing in the organization, it's different for everyone. So I think it's very important to first have a shared vision of what you want to promote as an organization. Right? If you're a logistics company versus if you're a factory versus you are a BPO, KPO, Imperatives will be all very, very different. So I think we have to have a shared vision about what we want to do. And then when you have to drive it, take Peter Senge's fifth discipline, which is the learning organization framework, which is these 5 pillars that you have to actually make the organization learn. Because remember, we are all learning about what well-being is all about. It is an ongoing, it's an ever-growing journey. And we have all our personal milestones that we are actually. So look at those 5. And if I remember them 5, first you need to have a shared vision. Then you have to have common mental models. So when I say common mental models, means you and I, when I'm speaking, we should mean the same thing when I'm talking of the same thing. So what happens is this, the need for communication becomes low. I know that we are talking about these 3 things, and these are the 3 things that we are trying to drive at the workplace. So common mental models that you do. For example, Johnson & Johnson, they work only on energy. They say personal energies that we will work on. Everything comes around. Aapko assessment karna hai, where are you on the energy? So everything is about energy. So you choose. We come from a country which is like, we have so many models that you can use. Use any. Shared vision, common mental models, personal mastery. Every person has to become an expert at what they are doing, but that together the team has to learn. So team learning also has to be there. And continuous learning should continue. So those are the things that you have to make sure that the philosophy of health and well-being driven in the organization have these 5 components. But stepping back, shuru kahan se kare? First, you need to have leadership buy-in. My PhD question, my research question was, why do people not participate in workplace well-being programs? Okay. For example, now roll back. You have a 24/7 helpline for seeking counseling. People are not calling. Why are they not calling? They feel, what if in case somebody comes to know I'm calling? You've actually got something, but because the psychosocial safety inside the organization is not high, what you're doing is actually not so. And where does this come from? So the answer to my research question is leadership behavior. So leadership behavior is definitely the leader of this. If it's a plant, it's the plant head. If it's an organization, it's the CEO. But HR is at a unique place to be the conscience keeper and be the leader itself. So we can conduct our lives in a way that say that we are a model in terms of health and well-being. And there is so much that we can do on that. So first, leadership commitment. Second, metrics. You have to measure something, right? What's measured is improved. So then I'm sure sometime Isha will ask me the ROI question.
Absolutely. You read my mind.
that ROI question is something. So the World Economic Forum started something called a Workplace Wellbeing Alliance, where they took, I think, about 150 organizations, and they say, can we start measuring and seeing whether it's improving or not? And I'm admitting it is a very, very difficult thing to measure. And according to me, they are barking up the wrong pole. So they have declared that we are still kind of finding our way. But according to me, in health and well-being, what we have to measure is the effort and not the result. Because the results will show in the bottom line. So therefore, pick up metrics too. Like, for example, some of the organizations where Pluggage gives our counseling helpline, we do something called a radio show every month. And the radio show is, if you remember olden times, people used to send in questions, which used to be answered or played with a song. Now we have realized that the taboo for mental health is so high, nobody's picking up the phone and asking. So we would get a few calls during the pandemic times, like, my daughter's got her room shut, I don't know what she's doing inside, I'm worried. It's a normal, there'll be, if there are parents of that age, teenagers, they would understand what I'm talking. I found porn on my son's phone. What do? I don't know how to deal with it. Now, that is something that everybody is facing, but nobody is asking, because who will bail the cat? So what we do is we do an anonymous radio show every month at all the workplaces that we serve, where we pick up these difficult questions and say, how do you address them? What happens at first normalizes the conversation that, iske matlab there are lots of people whose children do that. Mine is not only one. It's like that. So it normalizes the conversation, and then the number of calls always go up after that. Because then people think, it's okay to call for this, it's okay to call for that. So that's very, 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 very important. That metric, then if I have decided I'll do once a month radio show, I will do once a month radio show. I will see how many people are calling, for what reasons are they calling. Now there are metrics, so you follow the metrics. So first is leadership buy-in, second is metric. Based on the metric, design a program which is relevant. So relevant design. Relevant design is, and the fourth is disciplined implementation. 4 things. So first, leadership buy-in. Second, the correct metrics. Third, design a program which is relevant. And fourth is disciplined implementation. Don't lose steam. Health and well-being things don't happen in a change. In an organization I had, and it was successful, I said that the conversation in your organization, when at the cafeteria people are sitting and talking, the quality of the conversation will tell you what is the culture change that are people talking about going to the latest restaurant which is open in time, or are they talking about how many minutes did you run, how many kilometers did you cycle, or I've started meditating and it's so wonderful, I'm writing poetry. I mean, it could be so many different things. So this is a long haul, but it has to be followed through with a lot of diligence. So that answers the question about what to track and how to do it.
And I think you're right. I mean, it is all about bringing that culture change, and these, like you said, the canteen conversation, the cafeteria, the water cooler conversations are always the best place for all of this.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what it is. But there is one thing that was coming up to my mind, and you touched upon all of this in whatever you just said, but that bringing us one point from the previous question here is that you said that you've got to be a little bit dispassionate about the health and wellness initiatives that you're doing. And at the same time, we also know that leadership buy-in and leadership needs to really model the change, right? Really needs to model what they want to promote within the organization. That's a given. Now, considering that, between being dispassionate and having the leadership buy-in, there is an HR in the middle. How would you elaborate the role of HR in bringing both of these things, together to make it most effective?
Okay. So this question about whose responsibility is it? So if in case I'm talking, you're asking me as a person, I will say it's the individual's responsibility, always. But when I say that as an organization, see, I study the Arthashastra. So it says that Praja Sukhe Sukham Rajya. Praja ke sukh mein hi Raja ka sukh hai. And Praja naam hite hitam rajya. Unke hit mein hi unka hit hai. So the job at my job as a leader is to make sure that everybody in my ecosystem is well. And I have to be passionate about it. I send a WhatsApp note I run organizations to every employee I know who's not doing well. If somebody is in a problem, I speak to their families, because to me, it is very important that everybody's well-being is taken care of. I'm very emotional about it. It also upsets me when somebody is struggling. But at the same time, as I told you, we also have to have the wisdom to understand that I can do only this much. I have many HR leaders come to me with a grouse saying that itna karte hain hum. I organize such things. People don't participate. What is the point of taking care of these people? Step back and ask, why did they not participate? What could I have done different so that they could participate? I'll give you an example. And harassment at the workplace these days is at an epic high because, stressors are on, and with the harassment comes sexual harassment also coming in. Now, I say to make people aware about sexual harassment is an opportunity for letting people know what harassment is all about. And when it takes a sexual nature, it becomes sexual harassment. So you have a budget because posh sensitization has to be done. Can you leverage it to create a learning experience for people so that they enjoy it and they also learn what harassment is? Not just sexual harassment, but what harassment also is. But what are people doing? We do posh sessions and then everybody's got their cameras off and nobody is listening. We don't even know whether people are listening. So this is money going down the drain. And why is this happening? Because I am not passionate about actually taking that little budget that I have to convert it into something which can be actually gainful for my people. And this grouse that I am doing and people are not participating also led me to my research question. But what I've also figured out is that if in case you lead the way from the front, people do come in, but how much emotionally invested are you in it? So I think it's actually karma yoga, that you do your bit with full 100% into it. But what happens is also depends on the karma of those people who are participating in it. So I know it sounds very philosophical, but that's the way I keep going. And I keep on tweaking and saying, could I have done it better? Could we have done it different? Could it be better? And it always gives results rather than getting pulled down by it. So the responsibility of well-being has to be taken onto the shoulders of the leader. There's no shortcuts to that at all.
And especially the HR leaders who are leading this for the leadership team.
So, and a part of the job is actually to go and speak to the leader. Mm-hmm. And to speak to the leader, you're speaking to somebody who's running a business. I run a business, I know the pressures. And there is a top line and a bottom line which has to be taken care of. So learn to speak the language of the leader. Yeah. You know, what we do is we end up as activists in front of the CEO's desk. This should be done and we owe it to people. Wow, what makes you think that the other person is not a good human being who wants to do it? He's just got pressures which he can't present and say that I can't. It's just about having a conversation for him to see reason in doing what it is and then converting it. We do. So I'll give you an example that we have cultural conversations come in that two divisions in an organization and one is not talking to the other because the leaders are not talking to themselves. We do interventions at 3 levels. So we do interventions at the leadership level, which I lead myself. We do interventions at the group level. And then we do huge amount of promotion at the individual level at the bottom of the organization. And we've had stupendous results in that because you're not talking culture. You're talking emotional well-being. Everybody thinks it's a touchy-feely thing. People open themselves out to it and they don't even know and there's a change which has happened. So I think well-being is an opportunity to address very difficult problems within an organization. Very difficult ones.
Absolutely agree. And in fact, this is something that, I talk about on my podcast, and we've touched on that earlier between you and I. But the whole person first approach to everything that you're doing, keeping that as the centerpiece of all of your initiatives, and like you said, starting from the ground up, and it addresses so many issues at at levels that you won't even imagine they would. And I think that whole N is equal to 1 concept of that one person, being responsible for their own well-being and looking at others, also that one person, who's responsible for their well-being.
So I'll give you an example about what well-being is not, and it will tell you what actually is happening. This was I had a conversation with the head of HR of a large bank. And we're having a conversation, all of a sudden she gets a call. And she gets a call where somebody is trying to call her up saying that some medicine is going to get delivered to her mother's place. She gets up agitated, profusely apologizes to me that I'm so sorry that I have to really step out and take this call. And she really, it felt like she was feeling she was unprofessional, she's inadequate, and she shouldn't have been doing this. She's being disrespectful to me. And she rushes out of the room. Her second in command was sitting there. And I says, is her mom struggling with something? And he said, I don't know. And just before that, she had told me in the region, we have scored 4.5 on 5 in well-being. So you see, what I would put in as a last thing is that do not take in by these artificial definitions of professionalism. We are human beings. We have to humanize the workplace. We feel human when there is somebody to talk to and say, you know what, I have a mother, she's sick, and whatever I do for her, she's always grumpy with me. These are struggles that I have. If I can't share it with the person whom I'm sharing work with for 10 hours, can I ever be well? I'll get ulcers, I'll get cholesterol, and then you'll send me for a preventive health checkup. While what could
That's
have helped?
reality.
Well, what could
Yes.
have helped is an organization which encourages conversation between people, which encourages deep, meaningful connections and relationships at work. This is
Yeah.
the way to counter this entire menace of mental health, not having, counselors only sitting at your work premises and giving line a 24 by 7 counseling line. Those are curative. But first, people have to understand that it's okay to seek that help.
Yeah.
Where are we doing that?
Yeah.
So therefore, my urge to all of you is that, and how many people, and there are 36 people here, I'm sure there are people mostly from HR, make your own definitions for well-being. Don't take in what the world is saying, what should be done and not done. Don't take in for articles which are giving you 10 lists of things to do for health and well-being. You know your people the best. Pick up 2 out of the 10 things that you would think would do, which will benefit them in what you're doing, and then follow it up with disciplined implementation. And that is what will actually achieve some kind of a change in the organization. And for that, we have to therefore humanize the workplace as much as is possible. One of the questions also, Misha, was that now that it's becoming digitalization has come in, AI has come in, what role does HR have? I think it is very good times for HR now, because all your grunt and operational work that you were struggling with the ERP and the spreadsheets are over. Now it is your opportunity to come into your human form and help people be human. Let us not look at them just as resources. There are human beings engaging with one another at the workplace. And the more pleasurable we make it for them to interact, the more they will work for the organization, the longer they will stick around with you. Because a few thousands here and there, I'm not talking about absolutely bottom of the pyramid, but in the middle management up, a few thousands here and there doesn't matter. What people want these days is actually life. So I think they're at a very good place to.
In fact, one of the questions, and this whole question of digitization reminds me of that question was, attrition. The fact that people have so many options to go to these days. How does an organization prevent attrition by increasing their well-being practices? So that was, I think, one of the questions that was asked as well.
It is.
And
It is. Yeah. And do not take on the load of well-being just on your shoulders, because remember that one HR person cannot ensure the well-being through direct contact. It has to happen through your people. So I think it's very, very important first to learn what well-being is myself. I'm talking about myself as an HR professional. I need to first take my managers up the curve on what it means to support health and well-being. So we have at Pluggage, we run a mental health first responders program. It's a 13-week program that we run where people in the organization are trained on picking up what could be actually going wrong with a certain person or process and fixing it then and there. Because this is something you have to build capability inside the organization to counter this menace. And it is a real menace because we are in this space. Suicides aim to harm oneself as well as others is on an all-time high. So there's so much of anger which is there. We have to give people an outlet to express. Now, HR can't do everything itself. So you have to create processes which make it easy for people to express themselves so that this pent-up stress which is there keeps on going on. Build regularity in people's schedules. So, for example, you say that no calls after so-and-so time. It's such a relieving thing to think that after this, nobody's going to call me. Yeah. If you want to drop a message the time. From 1:30 to 2:30. At Pluggage, 1:30 to 2:30, we have no internal meetings. They're banned. Saying 1:30 to 2:30, people will collect themselves after half the day has gone, finish their lunch, and then decide what they have to do. Nobody's going to interfere with anybody's schedule. So schedule is very important. And you all live in the mostly a Delhi crowd. You see, when you go to Gurgaon and you have to travel the roads, you don't know where you are going because the flyovers are made in such a way that you miss one. Can you imagine the kind of helplessness that gives you? That I miss one turn and after that, that's a kind of helplessness that currently is actually related to the workplace also. There is so much of an overload. So if we give order at the workplace, that itself becomes fantastic. And then we have to continuously talk about it to our managers. So first, upskill ourselves, then upskill the management, then the larger organization would be taken care of.
I think that's a very interesting point, and I can say it from experience that, that whole thing about when you said that, it relieves the pressure when you say that, from this time to this time, no calls and all of that, take a break for 1 hour and, stuff like that. I think it can actually be extended to your wider networks as well, your bigger ecosystem. And I see that happening in a lot of my clients. Like, sometimes we'll get emails in out of office hours, but at the same time, the email will carry a disclaimer that, my office hours or my working hours might be different from yours. So please don't think that you have to respond to me ASAP. And I think that is such a relief, even for the bigger ecosystem that you're working with, as a company, because it just tells the other person that, okay, they really mean it when they say well-being as a company, and hence I can really work with them because they will understand my own challenges as well. And that establishes you as a leader in that space also.
So I can see a question from Dr. Singh, how to develop or make a shift in the organization in the times of automation of HR work and its process through. So, Dr. Singh, are you saying that HR has lost its significance in the organization? Is that what your question is?
No,
and you can
no.
unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you just tell me what would you mean then?
I mean, as the shift has being taken, the auto work is being done in the HR through the HR technology, but management not ready to take the employee, consider the employee well-being after that. Employee work is not at the workplace. That a lot of things also consider is account for, which is also part of the what like commutation.
So what you're saying is the leadership is not convinced that health and well-being is a relevant agenda.
Yes.
You have to find your small case studies to prove to the management, because preaching will not help. So pick up a small little project of some kinds, and I'm okay to have a conversation on the side after this with you, because that's what I'm so passionate about, and show and tell that this is what the difference we can make, and then only will the leadership be with you. And at the same time, as automation, AI, ML come in, we have to, as HR people, we have to reinvent ourselves. That part which is being taken care of by AI, ML, and automation, we have to find new skills which this new workplace needs now. One of them being understanding what is mental well-being right now. That's a huge agenda at the workplace. If you can upskill yourself on that, you will become very, very precious to the organization. So for that, you might have to do a little amount of research, learning, so that when you're having a conversation with people, they are able to appreciate what you're saying then.
Thank you.
And whether they answered the question, because it's it's a normal grouse that people have, is that my leadership is not appreciative, but that's where the challenge is.
Because they already consider the HR not contribute to most of the business part, business. So they already treat it the expensive side. It's a expenditure part.
Dr. Singh, what is the gross profit percentage of your company?
Madam, basically, I'm working in a public sector.
Yeah. So what is the gross profit for your company?
It's last to become, because balance is to be declared in June.
So what I'm saying is that it's very important for us to speak the language of the business. I have been on your side. I'm on the other side now. And if my HR person doesn't understand my business imperatives, then I will really not think that you have my interests in mind. So I think it's important for you to start looking at your cost sheet, your gross profit, where they're coming from, and you will see you'll have a place at the CEO's table. Very, very important.
Yes, like the organization is growing with the 14-15% around the growth in the organization. And at the market also nearby to under 20, I mean 15 to 20 the total market. And the organization average growth is, our organization is this year to year on year is around 14-15. That is the
which is great. What I'm trying to see is that, do you know how much of kitty that the organization has to actually spend on things like this? So once you have that, then your conversation becomes more informed then with people.
I think you talk the same language then.
It's very, very important. Can emotional intelligence awareness help to achieve mental well-being in terms of, oh yes, absolutely. Just look at emotional intelligence. What is it? It's such a simple thing. My self-awareness and my ability to manage myself. Ho gaya na pehla. First is this. So my mental well-being is that only. Then social intelligence. Am I able to understand what other people are saying? Am I able to understand somebody is upset with me? Am I able to understand that this person is not telling me, but what he means to say is this? And then I am able to act according to it. That's what emotional intelligence is. So emotional intelligence is equal to emotional well-being plus social well-being. So you're bang on. Emotional intelligence really helps. But then how we drive the program becomes very important, that people take feedback that I'm not emotionally intelligent and not become defensive about it. Because these programs, most of us become very defensive about it. So if you can create a non-threatening workplace where level of safety that people feel is very high, you will see it's very easy to run these programs then.
I think we have a question from Rohit Pandita.
Yes.
Rohit, you might ask that question directly over here. Rohit?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. Yes. Actually, ma'am, मेरा question ये था. Actually, currently, मैम मैं अभी pursuing कर रहा हूँ MBA. तो मैम मैं चाहता था कि मैम जैसे वर्कफोर्स में अगर हम जैसे कि मैम मैं चाहता हूँ कि मैम मैं फॉरेन कंट्री में परस्यू करूँ अपना एचआर. जैसे कि मैम मेरे को एचआर डोमेन में मैम वर्क करना मैम बहुत अच्छा लगता है, बिकॉज पब्लिक इंटरेक्शन मैम मेरा बहुत स्टार्टिंग से रहा है, बिकॉज मैंने मेरा 2.5 ईयर वर्किंग एक्सपीरियंस है सेमी गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स में. तो मैम मैं वही चाह रहा था कि मैम वर्क प्लेस में मैम हम वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट को मैम कैसे हम कंसिडर किया जाए, सो दैट ताकि मैम हमारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए एक बेटरमेंट रहेगी. और मैम एचआर डोमेन में मैम इन सब चीजों को मैम कैसे इम्प्रूव किया जाए मैम, क्योंकि मैम मेरा इसमें इंटरेस्ट थोड़ा ज्यादा था, ताकि मैं चाह रहा था कि मैं अपना जो करियर है वो एचआर डोमेन में बिल्ड करूँ मैम.
It's a very good thought, and if you like engaging and working with people, I think that's a wonderful thing to do, Rohit. And since you're thinking of working, you want to work outside the country, then it's very important that you pick up issues which are culturally not very dependent, right? Very, very important.
Okay, ma'am. Yes.
That's very important because many things have a cultural context. जो कल्चरल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में इंडिया में रेलेवेंट है वो शायद आप यूके ऑस्ट्रेलिया में जाएंगे तो रेलेवेंट नहीं होगा. So you need to pick up things which are wider in their whole thing. At the same time, you can specialize in something like a diversity, equity, and inclusion, saying that I come from a different culture, so I understand what nuances of a different culture are like. So that is about the choice of your career. Second, women empowerment, when you say, I get the feeling that power has to be given to women, right?
Yes, ma'am, definitely, ma'am. Yes.
So I think at the workplace, it's a very big subject. So I'm at loss of words as to how to succinctly put through to what I actually mean. I believe in the concept of femininity and masculinity. Okay, and women are mostly feminine. Women are mostly feminine, and men are mostly masculine. Sounds such a dumb thing to say, but that's what it is. But unfortunately, what has happened now is that even women to succeed at the workplace have become very masculine. So I think at the workplace, you should, Rohit, and that's a job for you, you should discover what does femininity and masculinity mean, because they need to be at balance at the workplace so that the workplace culture is optimally right. Any of the two is wrong. I used to work for Star TV where most of the people were women. And then I was to work for an EPC company where most of the people were men. Okay. And in both the places, the organizational culture usually gets driven by whoever is in majority. And that's where the loss for the organization lies. So if you can figure out what does femininity, masculinity mean and learn how to balance it at the workplace, my friend, you have a brilliant career for you ahead then.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
We also have a question from Lokesh.
Okay.
Lokesh, you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, please?
Yeah. Hi, good morning. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Lokesh ji, bataiye.
My question is from a different perspective. Like I'm a consultant. I run my own manufacturing unit as well. So I'm working for a company as a consultant, and so this consultancy is very demanding. Like from me, like I start my day early in the morning, 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. Do all these like meditations and everything, and start my day for work. And end my day around 11. I reach around 11 p.m. Almost, let's say, can say 5 or 6 days a week. Okay, and definitely I'm earning money, paying my bills and everything. But at the same time, so life work balance is like not there. Like I'm not able to meet my friends. Uh, the things which I really like to do. Like I love to study a lot. Love to read books. Like I have my own books like over here as well.
I hear you.
Yeah, but it's a 900 people company. Like where I am here. So I need to manage a lot of people. Like with regards to work, like I train them, motivate them in terms of leadership, managing operations, deal with the clients over here, and at the same time my own set of business which I do. So like when we are talking about this well-being perspective, because now today's world is very dynamic. Like people wants to do like a lot of things together because they want prosperity and everything. This is what I do as well. So in somehow I think like I am losing a track. So sometimes I see myself, okay, एकदम सब कुछ किसी collapse ना हो जाए. Okay, like almost 15 days back, I was like, I'm a person like who just goes.
This is being overwhelmed, Lokesh. This is what happens when you have too much coming on beyond what we would like to manage, actually. That's what's happening to you, right? So I have a question. This long work hours that you're doing in your thing to build a business, do you see an end to it, or yehi dhar raha hai?
There's no end.
No. So then you have to step back. And therefore, it's a good idea might be, so just take off 2 days for yourself and find out what truly has meaning for you. Are you looking for validation from outside, or are you doing it? Because I can see this hint of sadness कि मैं किताबें पढ़ नहीं पाता हूँ. So जो आप कर रहे हैं उसमें मजा तो आपको बहुत आ रहा है. It's great.
Yeah.
But there are some parts which you are yeah. So I think it is a tough call.
The people are here like to whom I can like say whatever I need to say. Like I can train them, teach them, like what are the knowledge which I have. But for my own further trainings and development, like things are.
So there is a very beautiful concept in the yoga philosophy called Swadhyay, which means studying of the self, by the self, for the self, of the self, by the self, for the self. You need to take out some time and do some Swadhyay. And if you want to reach out to me anytime, I've been there, done that, broken away from it to do what I'm doing today. So probably it might help. A few stories might help. So at times, the day I gave up my job, it was very difficult for me to cope with it. I cried, I sulked, I was angry at people around me, though it was my own decision. But then it worked out. So it's that one difficult decision at times you have to take.
So one thing which comes to me, like when we are speaking about the company which I'm working right now as a consultant, they look up to me like for the further growth and for their further work, and they want to engage me like so in so many other projects which I see like कि अगर मैं उसमें जाऊंगा तो मैं और ज़्यादा
yeah.
Like then I will not have a single time for myself as well.
So Lokesh, you need to build another location, and that is possible. Don't say me not possible.
It is.
You have to build another Lokesh, not you, another person. Why are people coming to you? Because they think there's no alternative.
Delegate.
And sometimes it's that validation is great कि हमारे बिना काम नहीं चलता है. फंसिए मत उसमें. फंसिए मत. नहीं तो उसके लिए बहुत जरूरी है कि एक और लोकेश खड़ा कीजिए. उसके बिना कोई मुक्ति नहीं है इससे.
Thank you.
कभी-कभी आदत हो जाती है लोकेश, when we get so much of appreciation and dependence from the world. So I'll again go back to yoga philosophy, I'll tell you. So in the yoga philosophy, it's said that after a certain amount of practice, you get certain siddhis, supernatural powers. And usually all progress of the aspirant stops there. But that's not the purpose. वो तो just station, रास्ते में चलने वाला station है वो तो. आप पहले ही उतर गए. उतरना तो आपको बहुत आगे जाके है. तो बीच में उतरिए मत. Get back onto the train and go on. Very important.
I'll reach to you.
Sure, absolutely. My numbers are all in the public domain because I run a public organization. So anytime, just text me and then we can talk.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am.
I think that was a very useful discussion that we had just now. It probably also touches on that initial conversation that we had where you said that, with the gig economy coming up and people doing million things at the same time, there is no end to the information that you're getting in every day, every single day, every single minute. And that wears you out, and I think
simple rules of self-management become very important. So I'll tell you a few things, Lokesh, that I do so you would know where I'm coming from. So I run Computer Shiksha. I run Plugage. I am part of a study group called the Living Philosophy Study Group, in which I'm one of the most senior mentors. So I run study groups across the country, which then get written as case studies for universities. So you can imagine the depth of the work required for that. Then I have a regular, because that's something which I love, list of managing directors, heads of functions whom I coach on a regular basis. And over the weekends, I go and engage with children with stories. And I have a family which is very fond of me. They stand behind me. They're very fond of me. I'm one of the most popular people in my family. And I'm able to do all of it together by staying human, asking for help, saying, I cannot do it. Can we do this later? So you just be human. In being human only, we have supernatural powers in us, Lokesh. When you try to be superhuman, you lose the human inside you. And there is another, which I forgot, there's another spiritual organization that I'm a top volunteer for, and I do all their translations of all work into Hindi. That's a rigorous work. So you can imagine. और भी होगा, मुझे ध्यान नहीं आ रहा है इस वक्त. But मेरे पास, my machine has got folders. And when I work on one folder, no other tab is open. So therefore, I'm fully immersed right now. I'm here with you. There may be battle going on outside. It doesn't matter to me. But when I'm out from here, then I don't think about it. I said this. What would people have said? Could I have said it better? So therefore, continuously engage, disengage, engage, disengage. And you can do it. It's fun.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Great. I don't see any more questions coming up, but if anybody has any questions, you know where Dr. Swapna Lekha is. She just invited all of you to look her up in the public domain, and you can text her and then get into a discussion with her if you need to. And I think let's just sum it up, and close this session. We're also perfectly in time. It's almost 11:50. I think for me, the biggest takeaways were, it is a personal responsibility. The word that stayed with me is Swadhyay. I think that is so beautiful. It is my personal responsibility to not only upgrade myself, but upgrade others around me in a way that actually creates another me. So that I don't have to do everything myself. And when that happens, it becomes easier by law of multiplication to get more people involved. And even as HR, if you were to extrapolate this into an HR setting, you as an HR person, if you can upgrade yourself and look at your wellness and well-being and be responsible for that, and then train another person, maybe your own team, going forward as to what it means, what is the definition of well-being and health for you and as you see it for the organization. And then all of you talk the same language and use it to fuel business goals, and then talk to your leadership and then make it their agenda, make it an agenda that can be run by them with leadership buy-in. Any health and wellness program can be run effectively. It can be run across those 6 things that you talked about. And then it can be effectively measured if it is run and implemented regularly, continuously, without thinking how many people are doing it or how many people are not doing it. At the same time, you got to go into the depth of why are people not doing it? Why are people not really using the initiatives that you have launched? Where is the gap? Is there a gap in your understanding of what is required? Is there a gap in your understanding or their understanding of what you are standing for? And then address that gap. And I think it starts with the I and then moves on to the we.
And the best bit is that if you take on to this journey, not only do you impact lives, the first life that you impact is yourself, which happened with me. I stand as testimony to taking an interest in the subject. You actually do yourself so much service. And then obviously then it goes on and impacts so many other people. Absolutely. And if you do certain things, people bless you for that. And in this world, I can still tell you good thoughts about you that people have will take you a long way.
I completely agree with you, Dr. Swapnalekha. I am also a pranic healer. And we say in pranic healing, in giving is when you shall receive. So it's, as much as, and Upasana just said that this was a very human session, it is ultimately about humans. It is about bringing...
Absolutely.
Well-being and health is about humans. It's not about, it's about where we are and how we're living our lives, not as a standard of living, but as a lifestyle.
Yeah. Exactly. Whether you take the car and drive down to the next block or you walk is your lifestyle.
Absolutely. Wonderful. So if we have any more questions, we can take them up now in the next 2 minutes. If not, then we can call it a day.
Great. Thank you so much. It was a very interesting conversation. And I just hope that you look at things a little differently from what you did 1 hour back. That's all that the attempt was all about. There is enough being, as I was telling Veer also, enough being said, spoken of, talked in the public domain. But it is this small shift that we need in our own looking at it. Apna lens theek ho gaya to fir baki karne ko it's not such a big deal.
Absolutely. So thank you very much.
So thanks
Dr.
so much.
And thank you very much to Core HR in getting us together for this session today. Should we officially close the session?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dr. Swapnalekha, for enlightening us with your wisdom. Thank you, Misa, for conducting a nice moderation of this session, and thank you, Praveen, for organizing and connecting us together for this webinar. Thank you everyone who have joined us on Saturday morning and always encouraging us to do better for the community. Thank you once again for joining. We'll keep doing these sessions, and we all grow together.
Thank you so much. And namaste to all of you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Madam. Thank you so much.